Dear Dr. Anil Garg, thank you so much for inviting me to the World Hydrogen Energy Summit. Big pleasure to participate on behalf of Smartenergy. And thank you, Mr. Yagdale, for the introduction of this session. Let me share my screen for my presentation. So will be talking on the heavy transport, clean fuels of the future. Smartenergy is a company fully engaged and committed into the energy transition, and heavy transport is obviously an important part of the picture for decarbonization. A common view we have every day on heavy transport is obviously the exhaust, the CO2 emissions we have, and we know that on this planet we need to keep going in moving big amounts of loads across the world, short, mid, and long distance. So we have the challenge to find solutions to decarbonize as fast as possible while still keeping our economy going and having obviously a sustainable growth which can be continued in longer future. So if we look into the global CO2 emissions from heavy transport, well, we saw the picture of shipping, but maybe surprisingly or not, the shipping is not the major issue overall, although a very important part. It is the road transport. The road transport here, visible by IEA analysis, 2,197 million tons of CO2 emissions from the road, followed then by the shipping, 667, and a tiny portion, the rail. So obviously, the rail is the path which we should all looking forward prioritize, but obviously there is not a way to do it everywhere. And within the road, it's clear that the heavy freight transport is the dominant part, followed by medium freight and bus. So we have a very clear picture where is the biggest problem in decarbonization of heavy transport and where to take actions as fast as possible. So looking a little bit specifically also into India and the comparisons. So we have said road as the main thing, and in India, the road emissions are quite significant also compared to the other comparable countries. Well, United States is on top by far, so they know they have a job to do. China, similar. But India comes third place, and India has a huge potential, obviously, to develop the economy, to develop transport, to increase quality of life, but at the same time, the challenge not to increase so much the CO2 levels. And as I'm sure you speak in much more detail on the conference in India, but just having a glimpse on it, you see that the growth of CO2 emissions by passenger and freight transport on this smaller chart on the bottom is first of all increasing. And now the question is which path to take to get to a scenario, to get to a roadmap of transport emission to net zero or zero. And obviously here you see on the right-hand side, there is innovation needed, innovation urban planning, a model shift between the transport modes, improved efficiency important, but the big thing, obviously, electrification and alternative fuels. We know electrification doesn't work for all options, but it's the number one, and followed by alternative fuels. So summarizing, road transport accounts for 90% of final energy consumption in the transport sector in India. Road freight accounts for 95%. And although the Indian Railway is the fourth largest in the world, 71% is transported by road. As said, this is a clear way now to put together a strategy in shifting, obviously, as much as possible to train, but also to decarbonize the other means. So luckily, innovation is on the way. This is a global activity, global approach, and just on some of these mobility segments, comments quickly. Well, I've been also in nice conversations in several occasions with Airbus and other manufacturers for the airplanes. There is strong belief that hydrogen will take an important role on the medium and even longer medium range using hydrogen. Hydrogen train, I live in Germany, work in Switzerland, and we have hydrogen trains now in operation, fuel cell hydrogen, which are being tested, but also already in commercial operation. There is a lot of emphasis onto, and we saw it's the most important segment, on the trucks, the heavy freight trucks, like here an example, Volvo and Daimler, hydrogen fuel-based trucks, but also on the working machines like mining whole truck being retrofitted with hydrogen, or also then for the boats. There is a current and a future of fuels for the heavy transport. And the thing is now that we have on rail side diesel electric mainly, and there is a lot of opportunities, hydrogen, LOHC, RFNBOs, biofuel, HVO on road transport. We saw before, but also here again, gasoline, diesel, LNG, CNG, low share. It didn't really work in this direction for earlier decarbonization, but we have battery electric, biofuels now coming, H2, LOHC, RFN, refundables, renewable fuels of non-biologic origin, biofuels. And on the shipping side, we know the bunkering fuel, the very, very dirty fuel, already a bit better on the diesel, LNG, battery electric for short distances, obviously not such huge container ships. But nicely, there is two main solutions which come up, e-methanol. We know that Maersk, for example, container shipping has ordered several container ships for e-methanol use, e-ammonia as a major candidates, besides obviously also H2, RFNBOs and others. These new options show us that we can decarbonize a lot on the current usages over time, obviously, but we need to accelerate this. So what I marked here in red can be taken away of the equation over time and really go into a CO2 neutral situation. So energy density characteristics are defining in which application new carriers can be adopted. I will not spend too much time on that one because it goes in a lot of details, but just some key messages. Hydrogen has a very, very high mass energy density. Unluckily, it has a very low volumetric energy density, even at higher compression, even if it's liquid. So that's why also the alternative derivatives from hydrogen, which you can produce, are very, very interesting as a second step. The one is if you do e-fuels, in the end, they have almost the same density or have the same density. And so they can overcome by that some loss in the efficiency. But also going for e-methanol, e-ammonia, and others, they have a good kind of combination of mass energy and volumetric energy density. So far in the world, approximately 30% of worldwide H2 projects are opting for ammonia so far because it's a traded commodity of today. Let me make some further comment on how to reduce to minimum the greenhouse gas impact of fuels. So the one on the left-hand side, you can see fuel carbon intensity for selected energy carriers in transport. And while we know obviously about gasoline, diesel, LPG, CNG, FAME, ethanol, DME, surprisingly, hydrogen electricity is not necessarily the one which reduced most our carbon emissions, because obviously the question is, how has it been produced? And it has to be produced through renewable energy. And so we are kind of now at the source of everything. We need a lot and a lot more of renewable energy. We are right now discussing this challenge in Europe through the so-called additionality criteria. We say we want to do hydrogen, but only with additional renewables. Otherwise, we cannibalize our electrification, which is much more efficient on the first hand where it's possible. We don't want to take away electricity from there. If we look as an example into Germany on the comparison of average greenhouse gas emission by transport, it's obvious that flights is a very bad thing, inland flights. So go by train, fast train, much better. Passenger cars, well, if more people are inside, much better. But going to bus and rail is the way to go. So addressing existing commodity markets is the fastest way because their transport logistics is existing. If we go, for example, for e-crude, creating fuels with hydrogen and combination with CO2, either air capture, which is an early stage, unluckily yet for the readiness and technology, but also from point sources. This is a very nice path. We mentioned methanol ammonia, widely traded commodity, cost-effective, easy transport. And also an interesting project we are involved ourselves is H2HVO, so hydrogenated vegetable oil. It's a circular economy approach on used cooking oil with a high level of CO2 reduction. Just mentioning one of our projects, how we approach as a full ecosystem approach to decarbonization of the transport segment. Well, we collocate a large area of land, here 300 megawatt potential of photovoltaics, where we have the access, we have the secured, and this is an off-grid situation. So this is something which very often you have land, you are not able to do PV grid connected, but using hydrogen and then derivatives, you can use such land to do a very nice project for decarbonization. So we generate hydrogen, we combine it through the Haber-Bosch process with nitrogen, make ammonia, and the ammonia then serves for shipping, fertilizers, and chemistry industry. So the energy transition, as a summary of my talk, the three main pillars fit to the transformation of mobility and heavy transport. The first one, energy efficiency, savings, but also using the latest technology. So everything you save, you don't have to produce, and you don't have to care about to produce this in a clean way because you save it. That's the best, obviously, and we should not forget to emphasize these efforts, number one. Then comes electrification and the corresponding renewables. Electrification goes first wherever it's suitable, even on a bus. When the transport or the distances are acceptable or the infrastructure fine, electrification is more efficient. But we know about all the other issues where this is not feasible. Then we come from these renewables to hydrogen and derivatives generated by renewables. So we have the toolkit at hand. We have the innovation already done, obviously with optimization to be done, to make the whole decarbonization of the heavy transport and the mobility. I thank you very much for your attention. Unluckily, I couldn't join you in person in India. I wish you very, very good meetings, and I'm happy to continue with further interaction in the near future. Thank you very much.